Now, this is from the Majjhima Nikaya. It's one of those really important suttas. We might even say it's quite an exciting sutta. Aggi Vacchagotta Sutta. Aggi means fire. Aggi is Pali. In Sanskrit is Agni. And Latin is ignis. So you find Latin and Latin and Sanskrit are very close. So this the British, when they ruled India, they were amazed at the closeness of Sanskrit and English. So from ignis, you get words like ignite, meaning to start a fire. So Aggi here means fire. And here, this Aggi is a kind of prefix, like an adjective, a disambiguator, to make this sutta unique, so that we know we are referring to this particular sutta, M72. The number is M72. You can see just below the title, because the key metaphor is that of a fire. Vacchagotta is his Gotra name, sort of a clan name, if you like. So we don't really know his name, this person. Vaccha is one of those leading clans, if you like. Vatsa in Sanskrit is Vaccha. I think, if not mistaken, Vaccha means kind of like a calf. So Vacchagotta. So this is his like a family name, if you like. Sutta here means thread, teaching, going back to the Buddha himself, right? Then second line, you have the translation, the fire discourse to Vacchagotta. You can translate it different ways. You can say that the discourse to Vacchagotta on fire. M72, that's the number. Majjhima Nikaya, middle length teachings, sutta number 72. And if someone asks you what is this sutta about, so the theme is given to you there. It's about nirvana in the proper of language. So there you are. That's a bit of introduction. Vacchagotta, or to be more exact, we call him the wanderer Vacchagotta, because he started off, before he became a Buddhist monk, he was a wanderer. A wanderer is one of those people in the Buddha's time who decide to leave home and to find the truth for themselves. They want to live kind of a life free from the encumbrances of the city life, town life, because this was when in India the country was becoming more unified through the conquest of the kings, and the economy is growing. The people are becoming richer. They have more time and meaning more time to think and worry, and they get very busy and so on. So some of the people do not want to get caught up with this. So, or on the other hand, they could want to have it easy. They might feel not like working, so that they become wanderers, like the 60s hippies, if you like. So they are called paribhajaka, wanderers, right? And some of them are serious, like Vacchagotta is one of them. They will go around debating with other wanderers. Then there are the samanas or shramanas in Sanskrit. The samanas are more serious. They are renunciants like the Buddhist monks and the Jains. So they will live in communities and so on. So these wanderers, the wanderers usually they're more relaxed, they move around on their own, whereas the shramanas are more serious, they're forest dwelling, they meditate and so on. So these wanderers will often go to the shramanas, ask questions. So this is one of those occasions when Vacchagotta comes to the Buddha and asks him some very specific questions. In fact, his favorite questions about what I call the 10 ideas or the 10 questions, if you like. We'll look at them in detail in a while. So this is what he does. He keeps on asking. All those years he's been meeting the Buddha. He asked the Buddha this question, and you find that there's a few suttas in his name. All right, so you can read up the notes after the study. So in the Vacchagotta Ananda Sutta, S4410, you find he meets the Buddha for the first time. So he goes to the Buddha and asks, okay, he asks the 10 questions, all right? Is the universe finite? Is it infinite? And so on and so forth. And the Buddha is silent on all 10 questions. And he goes away rather dissatisfied, right? And then not Ananda is there. So usually Ananda acts as a kind of an in-between person, a liaison person between the Buddha and us. So the Buddha will ask the Buddha, Ananda to ask the Buddha, why are you silent? Why didn't you answer those questions? And then the Buddha explains to him, to Ananda. So in explaining to Ananda, the Buddha is also explaining to us why he does not answer those 10 questions. One basic reason for this is that if you were to answer those questions, it may satisfy Vacchagotta, but then it will go against his teachings. So he would rather be silent, right? And for good reason too, because Vacchagotta, he was quite adamant in trying to find his answers, and he somehow found the Buddha as a good person to answer this kind of question. One reason I think is because the Buddha is very peaceful, he looks very calm, and there is certain charisma that people look up to the Buddha. So he keeps coming back to the Buddha. So this is in the Vacchagotta Ananda Sutta S4410. Then he comes back later, recorded in the Devija Vacchagotta Sutta. This is M71, and sometimes called Chula Vacchagotta Sutta. So here again, he asked the Buddha a question. He asked the Buddha whether the Buddha is omniscient or not. Does he know everything? The Buddha says, no, nobody can be omniscient. It's impossible to know everything all the time. But he knows enough to be liberated. So he has this knowledge that frees him from suffering. So that's why he meets the Buddha again. And then we come to this sutta where the Buddha does something remarkable, right? Now we all have been told by teachers that the Buddha never answers any of these 10 questions. Well, in a sense that is correct, but today you will see that he actually does answer some of the questions. So we're going to find out why he does that, and how did he answer those questions. So this is what's so exciting about this sutta. Of course, you'd be wondering, after listening to all this, what happens to Vacchagotta? Right? Well, he feels very happy after this. And the Mahavacchagotta Sutta, M73. So you have M71, M72, M73, they're all interconnected. It's about one person called Vacchagotta. So M73 records that he decides to become a monk, finally, after quite some time. And then he goes for a retreat, 2 weeks, it is said, and then he comes for instructions again, and then he becomes an arahat, finally. So there you are, you see this really amazing story of Vacchagotta, and this is the highlight of his meeting with the Buddha. All right, let's look at this sutta now. Go further down. The sutta is quite a long sutta, but there are lots of repetition. We must remember this, the sutta belongs to what's called the oral tradition. In other words, you find the people who record the sutta, that they will repeat certain points for us, so for the audience, so that the audience can remember the teachings. Okay. All right, go further down, further down. Yeah, okay, coming to it. Okay, that's it. Very good. Yeah, we got to make it a bit bigger, the screen. That's good. Yeah. Okay, further down. Yeah, here we are. Okay, this is a translation. Okay, you can look at your own notes, and you can look at the screen if you like. You can also have a pencil, make notes if you like. But don't worry if you think you'll miss anything, because everything is recorded, and you can download the recording again and continue to make notes. Aggi Vacchagotta Sutta, the fire discourse to Vacchagotta, M72. Thus have I heard. So here once again, this means the sutta was traditionally said to be remembered by Ananda, and then he recites it during the first council. Another way of putting it is the monks, they keep hearing this, and they hand this down from teacher to pupil. This is the oral tradition. So to help them remember that certain important passages are kind of recited again over and over, so that helps them, those monks at the time when they did not write down anything. Here, of course, you notice I've added in the Sutta Discovery series, we kind of make it easy for you. We add in subtitles, things like that, where we underline keywords. We put a Pali page number for you, and also give you some key Pali words here. You see here, what is underlined here, okay? The world is eternal. So you have sasata loko. Loko is the world, sasato, eternal, all right? All right, so the sutta begins as usual. At one time, the Blessed One was staying at Anathapindika's park in Jeta's Grove near Savatthi. The Indian suttas, unlike the Chinese sutta will tell you exact time, year of the emperor's reign, and so on. But the early suttas just tell you at one time, because this sutta is true at any time. And at one time is this very moment when you're listening to it, because this sutta is not history. I mean, it's not about history. It's not about, oh, the Buddha said this, the Buddha said that. It's about listening to this, and then our minds become clearer, and our lives change for the better. In fact, today you find, if you go on the internet, you find a lot of people know a lot of things. Amazing how much Buddhism people know. And they've been quarreling with each other. They've never met each other, but they're already fighting each other and cursing each other because of Buddhism. And that's rather odd, isn't it? So it's not about knowing things, right? When you learn the sutta, it's not about knowing that this is the teaching, or that is not a teaching. Something happens inside us. We feel more peaceful, and we begin to connect better with people, with ourselves, right? So that's what the sutta is about. At one time, it's this very moment when you connect with yourself. You are listening to yourself, so to speak. I'm talking to you, yes, but it's something that you listen inside you. After my talk, you hear some things inside you, and you begin to understand better. The self-talk that comes to you then becomes more meaningful. The Blessed One was staying at Anathapindika's park in Jeta's Grove near Savatthi. So this is the usual place. The last 25 years, the Buddha gave thousands of teachings. The 10 points. Then the wanderer Vacchagotta approached the Blessed One. Okay, something happens, right? So here Vacchagotta comes along, and as usual, he being a cultured person, keeping to the decorum of those days, even among religious people, exchanged greetings with the Blessed One, and then sat down at one side. Seated thus at one side, the wanderer Vacchagotta said this to the Blessed One. So in this case, you have Vacchagotta who initiates the dialogue, the discussion. Like here again, the 10 questions, I have divided them up into sets, and these are the topics. So he asked 4 questions about the nature of the world. I could use the word cosmology, like a big word, okay? So it's about the world. So here you have these dark numbers are the running number of the sutta, paragraph numbers. here brackets, these are the internal numbering for each of the questions. 1, 2, 3, 4, all right, up to 10. So question 1, yeah. How is it Master Gautama? So being a Brahmin, this Vacchagotta was a Brahmin from the Vaccha clan. So the Brahmins normally address the Buddha as Master Gautama. They don't use the word Bhante. Bhante usually used by the followers, those who already have faith in the Buddha. So here they call the Buddha Bo Gautama. Bo Gautama. Yeah? How is it Master Gautama? Does the Master Gautama hold this view that the world is eternal? Only this is true, all else is false, right? So he asked the Buddha, do you hold this view that the world is eternal and that's it? That's how we would say it in our time, right? Sasata loko, right? Here the Buddha answers and says, what? Well, sort of, the Buddha answers, Vaccha, I do not have such a view that the world is eternal, only this is true, all else is false. But it's not exactly silent, it's that he does not answer this particular question anyway, this type of question, all right? So he's silent on them in that sense, all right? Okay, then he asks a second question. Now, these 10 questions are kind of like a standard list, which the wanderers of those days are very keen to know. What do these people, what do the teachers think, right? Is the world eternal? Okay, then second question. How is it then, Master Gautama? Does the Master Gautama hold such a view that the world is not eternal? All right, so you notice they're related, 1 and 2. Is the world eternal? Is the world not eternal? Only this is true, all else is false. All right. So not eternal is asasato loko. And then the Buddha replies, what shall I do not have such a view that the world is not eternal. Only this is true, all else is false. So basically the Buddha is saying no. All right. All right. So he goes on to the third question. How is it then, Master Gautama? Does the Master Gautama hold such a view that the world is finite? Antawa. That means it's limited in space. All right. Question 1 and 2 are about time. Question 3 and 4 about space. So we're talking about time and space. That's why it's called cosmology. So you see, they're very connected, actually, very systematic. So in terms of space now, he asked the Buddha, what is your view? Do you hold the view the world is finite, that space is contained, space is limited? This is how we will talk in our times. Only this is true or else is false? The Buddha replies, basically, no, I don't have any view on this. All right. So he asks the fourth question in this first set of 4. How is it then, Master Gautama? Does the Master Gautama hold such a view that the world is infinite, not finite? Now notice here, you have antawa here, and then the an, just like English an, they're connected, they're very closely connected. Anantawa, right? Opposite of antawa. Anantawa loko, infinite. Is the world infinite then? In other words, space is boundless. We might wonder, oh, today, people think like that, the scientists think like that. But the point is, we really don't know. All these are guesswork and so on. Right. So again, the Buddha replies, nope, I don't have any view on this. Right. Now, when the Buddha says no, he means I do not have any view on this. I don't think about this. All right. So in that sense, he's silent. So these are the 4 questions. 2 about time, 2 about space regarding the universe. And the Buddha is just silent. He doesn't say anything about it. He says, I have no stand on this. I don't have any opinion on this. Next, we have a pair of questions, 7 and 8. Just go for a bit down, go down some more. Okay, there you are. 7. And this is the 5th question, right? Brackets 5. How is it then, Master Gautama? Does the Master Gautama hold such a view that the soul and the body are the same? All right? Tang jiwang, tang sarirang. Okay, it's a great time to learn Pali, actually. Okay, first of all, jiwang. Now, you know Malay, you say, oh, yeah, this is a familiar word. Jiwa, in Malay, jiwa means life. Of course, you don't expect the Indian word to have the same meaning when it comes to Malay. There's some nuance will change. Well, the original word jiwa means soul, life. Well, not so much of life, more of the soul, the essence of life. So tang means this. This, oops, let's get back right now. Okay. And then tang sarirang. Sarira is the body. Okay. Now, there are many words for body. There's kaya, but here sarira refers specifically to our physical body. So if you translate this literally, that soul, or this soul, this body, right? This soul is this body. So this is what's called Pali idiom. So in English, we say it as the soul and the body are the same. Of course, you can, if you want to be a bit technical, translate as that which is the soul, that is the body. Yeah. There are some people who love being technical. Well, that's one way of translating it in a very cumbersome way, not very helpful. The soul and the body are the same. Only this is true, all else is false. So Vacchagotta asks, is this your opinion? Again, the Buddha replies, Vaccha, I do not have such a view. So it's not actually silent. It says, I do not have such a view. I don't think about this. That the soul and the body are the same. Only this is true, all else is false. So sometimes these questions are said to be unanswered. Not because they are unanswerable, but rather the Buddha refuses to have anything to do with this kind of question. Okay, then number 8 is it's like a computer thing, you have a on off, huh? This on, this is off, see? Yes, no, okay? So question 6, how is it then, Master Gautama? Does the Master Gautama hold such a view that the soul and the body are different? All right. So here, view 5, body is one thing, the self or the soul is another thing. All right. I'm sorry, in this case, they are the same, right? First one. But here, they are different. The body is one thing, the self or the soul is another thing. So these are views which are held by the teachers of those days. So they have different meaning. For example, the materialists, even in our times, the materialists, they believe that the body, the soul, and the self are the same. That when the body dies, the soul also dies, and that's the end of it. It's no rebirth. So this is your belief, for example. So then you have others, the God believers. They believe that the body and the soul are different. That the self is the soul is eternal, the body is not eternal. So when the body dies, the soul will go to heaven. Right? So they have that kind of idea. So, but the Buddha reject both this kind of opinions, this kind of views. So you can see how tricky this kind of views are, and that's the reason why the Buddha does not bother about this kind of questions, because they're not related to the Buddhist practice. Okay, now we come to a very important set, right? This is a set of 4 questions. This actually is a third set. This is entitled the Tathagata. Okay. Now, okay, here, can we push the screen up a bit right now? Or try saying, yeah. Okay, Tathagata. There are actually 4 questions. Right here you can see 7, 8, 9. But it's okay. We look at these first 3. Now, we all know some Pali, and the moment you see Tathagata, say, oh, that refers to the Buddha. Okay. All right, here's the lesson you must remember. The word Tathagata does not always mean the Buddha. The term was used long before the Buddha anyway. And even in the Buddhist texts it's themselves, you have to see the context. Remember, there are texts and there are contexts. There are words and how words are used. And the Buddha is a wizard when it comes to using words. He is very wise in using words in such a way that you can connect with them in your own way. And you say, oh, okay, now I understand this, all right? So my point is you hold on to your view. You say, okay, I know the word Tathagata means Buddha, fine, you're right, you're not wrong. But there is something else you have to learn. Look at the word Tathagata. You have the word Tatha, and then you split it. If you split here in the English way, you get Tatha plus Gata, right? Tatha means thus, like that. Okay. In fact, the English that is very close to Tatha. And then Gata. Gata is the past participle meaning gone. So same root, gat meaning to go, right? Gata is gone. The one who is gone. But then you can also split, and this is really Sanskrit and Pali. You can also split. You notice this tata is long, right? Here I use it as an anglicized word, so it's kind of all the marks, the diacritics are gone, all right? You have actually, I should have, put in the diacritics here. There are some people who feel that even when we borrow foreign words, we should keep the diacritics. I think that's a good practice, right? So here, perhaps we might add the diacritic later. So the long R, the diacritic is the line above the A. No? So you can split as tata plus agata. So agata means who has come. See, because you put R in front, it's the opposite, agata, who has come. All right? Tata agata, one who has come. There you are, does come. And the Chinese will translate it, does come. Okay, rulai, okay? Does come, does gone, right? So, and there are various other senses. Buddha Gosha was very good in explaining all this, the meaning of Tathagata in like a dozen ways. So the point here is, it has many ways of, to explain this term, to this word. The simplest one is, of course, does come. But remember, just not to get too technical, in these 4 questions, asked not just by Buddhists, but by many of the wanderers, many of the non-Buddhists, even before the Buddha's time, the word Tathagata was used. So it could not just mean the Buddha, right? In fact, here, the Tathagata, even the commentaries tell us, it simply means a sentient being, a being that is born like this and dies, goes like that, and it comes and goes just like that. See, so this is the term, the technical term used by the non-Buddhists for a being. And especially when they ask these 4 questions, 7, 8, 9, 10, this being, you can translate as being, this being exists after death. Okay, this is one view. Oti tathagato paramarana. So exists after death, right? Notice here, this is very interesting Pali here. The verb is right in front. Normally this oti will be right at the back, but here the verb is in front. So you find this kind of very interesting Pali idiom, right? Tathagato, right? There is this Tathagata after death. Parang means after, marana, death. Hoti Tathagato paramarana. So hoti means there is, that exists, or continue to exist after death. Hoti Tathagato paramarana. Right? Does this self continue to exist after death? Now it's different from asking, does the self, do I exist after death? You can ask like that also, but here, does the being exist after death? Does this being exist? It can be a holy person, it can be an ordinary person. This being exists after death. Only this is true, all else is false. Again, the Buddha replies, Vaccha, I do not have such a view, that the Tathagata exists after death. Only this is true, all else is false, right? So I have no opinion on this, all right, says the Buddha. And then question 8. How is it then, Master Gautama? Does the Master Gautama hold such a view that the Tathagata does not exist after death? Okay, the Vacchagotta just says you say you don't agree with this point 1 that the Tathagata exists after death. What about, do you believe or do you accept that this Tathagata does not exist after death? That this being does not exist after death. Hoti Tathagato, na hoti. Okay, the na is missing here. No? Hoti paramarana. Notice here, nacha, nacha hoti paramarana. Okay, so, point 10. So Ratna, just make a note here. So again, the Buddha says, no, I have no opinion here. Okay, so you can, you'll be right in thinking Vacchagotta probably is quite surprised or confused, annoyed even. And it goes on to question 9. How is it then, Master Gautama? Does Master Gautama hold such a view that the Tathagata both exists and does not exist after death? Only this is true, all else is false. Or this is what I like about Pali. The beauty of Pali, how it puts such a sentence together. Hoti cha na cha hoti. Okay, notice hoti cha na cha hoti, exists and not exists. So the na is in the middle. Ne? Hoti cha na cha hoti tathagato naram maram parana. Okay. So the Buddha says, no, I don't have this kind of opinion either. I don't say this Tathagata or this being both exists and does not exist. Yes, I can almost hear your thoughts now that you say, oh dear, what does this mean? All right. Now just hold on, I'm going to explain to you in due course. All right. Now let's look at number 12 before we take a break. All right. So now this what you're going to ask the 10th question. How is it then, Master Gautama? Does the Master Gautama hold such a view that the Tathagata neither exists nor does not exist after death? Wow, look at the Pali here. Never. So apostrophe here is the R is missing. Na eva becomes never. Hoti na na. Notice a double na here. Na. Never hoti na hoti. Neither no. Neither exists nor not exists. Okay. Never hoti na hoti tathagato paramparana. All right. So neither exists nor does not exist after death. Again, the Buddha says, Vaccha, I have no such view. I do not hold such a view. All right. So here you are. You have the 4 states of existence. Exists, does not exist. Both exist and does not exist. And number 4, neither exists nor not exists. So these are the 4 states. I will talk about this in relation to the Aristotelian duality, the Greek duality. And we will look at this interesting point after the break. Okay, let me now explain the 4 alternatives, okay, or the 4 viewpoints, the 4 stands, and so on. Now, in ancient Buddhist, ancient philosophy, Indian philosophy, not necessarily Buddhist philosophy, there are 4 possible ways of talking about something. You can say something exists, something does not exist. Aristotle says that it's only possible to have these 2. Either something exists or does not exist. Either something is black or something is white. So this binary idea is very important because of this binary idea of Aristotle. I have this maths professor friend who told me that's how modern cybernetics, computers, and mathematics exist, based on this idea. when I told him about the four statements, the four possible statements, he almost gasped in shock and said, "Oh wow! Once you have, if you introduce these four statements, four possible states of reality, the whole modern like, science, mathematics, and computers will collapse. You won't have them anymore because you would have these two yes, no, on, off, you know." So these four states of truth refer to philosophy, to when we're discussing philosophy, not so much with science and logic in that sense, right? So, okay, we say something is black, it's not black, it is white. So we say it's not black. Then we can say it is yes and no. It is both black and white, if you like. For example, a zebra. A zebra is black and white. All right. So it's something extra. Of course, a logician will explain to you why this is extra and may not be helpful in logic. But the ancient Indians accept this way of talking. It makes sense to say that both exist, black and white. Okay. For example, a zebra has black stripes and white stripes. What about neither? Neither black nor white. Okay. Well, you can say, let's say a tree is neither black nor white, right? So we're talking about something else, a state of a thing. So there you are. You have four different ways of talking. So this is what the ancient philosophers, the Buddha's time, were discussing. Does this being exist after death, or does not exist, or both, or neither? It must be one of those things. The Buddha said, "Nope, I have no opinions on this." Of course, there is a possibility. One more possibility we can say, what about none of the above? Okay, again, the Buddha said, no, we're not going to talk about such things, all right? So this is the second part, the more interesting part of the sutta. So, of course, Vacchagotta, after coming to the Buddha so often, year after year, so again, he's very patient, so the Buddha also is patient with him. So he asked the Buddha, question 13, verse 13, how is it, Master Gautama, that when Master Gautama is asked, does the Master Gautama hold such a view? Okay, then he lists the 10 statements. That the world is eternal, only this is true, all else is false. The Master Gautama answers, Vaccha, I do not have such a view. That the world is not eternal, the Buddha answers in the same way. And then Vacchagotta says, okay, when I say the world is finite again, you don't say anything about it. The world is infinite, you don't say anything about it. You have no opinion. And then the four states of the Tathagata, the four states of the being after death, the same, different, both, neither. You also have no stand on this, right? Now we go further down to the bottom. Let's go down to the bottom. Yeah. So you have all the 10 now, right? So Vacchagotta says, how come when we say all these 10 things, I ask you about these 10 situations, you say you have no answer. So he's very curious. So he asked a new question. He asked, it's a very important question, what danger does the Master Gautama see that he does not embrace any of these speculative views? Notice the word speculative views are used, right? So this is a very important question. It is something new. We're going to start with a new phase of the study. All right, so let's see, what does the Buddha say? Further down. So basically, the Buddha says that, let's look at the first part, 14, all right? The dangers of speculation. Again, the 10 points are repeated there. Section 14, brackets 1, Vaccha. This holding on to the speculative view, the world is eternal, is a wilderness of views, a twisting of views, a wriggling of views, a fetter of views, attended by pain, by conflict, by misery, by fever. Okay, this is the classic Buddhist answer, the style of the suttas. It's very good to ponder a while, pause and ponder on this for a while, so that you understand the nature of Pali and the suttas better. So here the Buddha is warning us, saying, when we hold on to such a speculative view, this is a speculative view. In other words, it has no final answer. It's anybody's guess. So if we say, is the world eternal? Okay, that's one view. You can hold on to it and argue about it. It's a wilderness of views. There is no end to it. No one is right, no one is wrong. In a sense, everyone is right, everyone is wrong. A twisting of views, wriggling, fetter, right? So you notice this set of phrases, they very often they are either synonyms or near synonyms. So this is how the first dictionary began, actually. So began with the Buddhists. Someone called Moggallana, probably living in Sri Lanka, compiled the world's first dictionary by listing all these words together as a thesaurus. So you find this word wilderness is used in the figurative way. Twisting is used in the figurative way. Because when you're lost in the wilderness, you twist your way around and you wriggle your way around and you get caught in things, right? So you notice all these, they have similar meanings. They overlap in the meanings. And the result of this is pain, conflict, misery, fever. So here again, you see synonyms and near synonyms, right? So this is the nature of Pali. Another interesting thing you'll notice here, I've not put the Pali words. There is a way the Pali words are listed in this kind of list. They follow a rule called the rule of the waxing components or waxing syllables. Waxing, that means increasing. So you find the short syllabled words, the words with less syllable will come first. And then you go on 2 syllables, 3 syllables, 4 syllables, 5 syllables, like that. All right. So they often have that kind of arrangement. So when you chant, you find it's easier to chant also. I should have put in this for you to show you little how Pali does it, right? We'll do that later anyway. So there you are. The Buddha says this first view, whether the world is eternal, is this kind of situation. You get yourself into a lot of trouble when you discuss such things. Same thing applies to the other 9. Okay, let's go down and look further down. So I don't have to repeat all this. I just read to you the keywords. So here, Buddha says, Vaccha, if you hold to the view, the world is not eternal. Again, all these are it's a wilderness of views. And you get yourself in a lot of trouble. Let me read the last 2 lines. And this kind of situation, this negative situation of arguing and quarreling, bringing all kinds of pain and conflict, misery and fever, are not conducive to revulsion, nor to fading away of loss, nor to cessation of suffering, nor to inner peace, nor to direct knowledge, nor to self-awakening, nor to Nirvana. Okay, notice Nirvana is last. Okay, so it's showing that this is the most important word here. So this last 2 lines show the real reason why the Buddha is silent on these 10 points. It says these 10 points don't relate to awakening. They don't bring us wisdom to be free from suffering. Of course, there is this rather troublesome word, scary word, which frightens lots of scholars, revulsion, nibbida. Scholars are so troubled by this. Those who are not Buddhists, they say, oh dear, we can't translate this as revulsion. It's such a terrible word. So they try to choose some really nice, very sweet word, not to be something like not troubling us. It doesn't trouble us. Okay, but revulsion is revulsion. Suffering is revulsive. We don't like suffering. If we know something causes pain, we will just run away, we push it away, and we're going to say, just because I use the word disenchantment, a very nice word, it's a disenchantment. It doesn't make it better, right? So call a spade, right? Ajahn Chah is very straightforward. He says, if it is dung, you call it dung because it's going to smell real bad, you know? So suffering is revulsion, it causes pain. When you lose someone dear, someone you love, it's revulsion, you don't want it. When you get burned by fire, you're not going to put your hand in again and test, let me see whether it works again, you know? You know it's going to be painful, you're not going to do it again. So that's revulsion. So here, the term means you know the situation of suffering in the world, and you're not going to get caught up with it again. So it doesn't, all this discussion, all this debates about these standpoints will not help you see the real suffering in the world. And it won't help you to lessen lust and desire. It will not help you to stop suffering. It will not bring you inner peace. It will not bring you direct knowledge or self-awakening. It will definitely not bring you to nirvana. So, same thing with this idea, the world is finite. It's not going to be answerable, not going to be helpful. People are going to debate. Or the world is infinite. Again, you can go on debating. They've been doing this for centuries. Up to today, no one has come to any agreement, right? And same thing with the soul. And let's go further down. So same thing, the soul is same as the body. The soul is different. Again, we have different religions with different views and people with different views about this. And also the last 4 points, all right? Whether the Tathagata, the being, exists after death, or don't exist, or both, or neither. All right, and go further down. So the Buddha says he doesn't have any say on this. And he doesn't want to have anything to do with these 10 questions, with these 10 points, because it's a wilderness of views. It doesn't help us in any way in becoming wiser, especially in attaining the goal of awakening, in becoming a stream winner. So that's the reason he does not discuss them. All right, so now that's not the end of the story. There's more to come. The interesting part is yet to come. Let's go down to section 15 now. Okay, everything here repeats itself. You already know them. Okay. So now, Vaccha asks another question. That being the case, does the Master Gautama have any speculative view at all? So he's still very curious. He's a very curious man, very intelligent man. So he's wondering whether the Buddha has other kinds of opinions. So what speculative views do you have? Because the wanderers love speculative views. They love discussion. It's like philosophy 101 in the universities. You're supposed to ask questions. You're supposed to doubt, you know. It's a bit like Zen, okay? You're supposed to doubt. So the Buddha replies, speculative views, Vaccha, have been dispelled by the Tathagata, right? So, I mean, becoming a Buddhist is about giving up all these views, you know? So, Vaccha, the Tathagata has seen thus. So here, notice the Buddha uses this idea of seeing, right? That's why we use the word awaken. So it says that, one more point here. Note, the word Tathagata here means the Buddha does come. So here he's using that simple term of a being, meaning this being, me. Now, I want you to use your imagination a little bit here, not to think as a Buddhist, or just think, all right, selflessly. When the Buddha said this, he's not saying, I, the Buddha, right? He wouldn't think like that. He was using a term which the people knew very well those days, the Tathagata, this being. So he was just using that word in that sense. But as we study Buddhism, the teachers and the thinkers, they begin to give weight to such words. and then they have a deeper meaning. Oh, Tathagata is the Buddha, and so on. And then we begin to only associate it with the Buddha. Well, it has a broad sense. We got to understand this broad significance of the term. But here, yes, the Buddha using this word referring to says, this being before you. Of course, you and I, we will say I. Okay? He said, the Tathagata has seen this. This is form. So I suppose he's pointing to himself that this is form. This is the arising of form. This is the ending of form. Now just look at this one line. You see the whole of Buddhism here. Right? You just take one point here. Start with form, the body. This is the arising of form, ending of form. So remember the Buddha declaring to Anuruddha, Anuradha, he says, I only teach one thing, rising of suffering, ending of suffering. Right? So instead of suffering, instead of form, you can use the word suffering. Right? This arising is the ending of what? Of suffering. This is feeling. Right? So what is this being? What is this Tathagata? This is feeling. There is feeling here, right? That's all feeling, right? So there is the arising of feeling and it is the ending of feeling. So basically here, the Buddha is saying, what can you know? You look at yourself, what do you see? What do you know? You see form arising, form passing away, right? Even now, as I'm talking to you, form is arising, form is passing away in me in tiny bits, right? But it's happening. The feeling is arising, feeling is passing away. Because if feeling doesn't change, you won't feel anything. It is this change that makes you experience things. This is perception, right? How we recognize things. We hear sounds, we recognize these words. This is the arising of perception. This is the ending of perception. What arises must also end. These are formations. We form ideas about wanting, about thinking, about talking, about doing things. So this is our karmic activity in the mind. These are formations. This is the arising of formation. This is the ending of formation. You think about something. Okay, let me do this. Okay, I changed my mind. I'm not going to do this. This is consciousness. This is the arising of consciousness. This is the arising of consciousness. This is the ending of consciousness. Right? We are conscious of something, and then we're not conscious of it. It goes away. So these are the 5 aggregates. This is what we are. And you see this 5 aggregates arising, passing away, arising, passing away. And that's what you can experience right now. But this is only the beginning. Okay. So let's see next section. Therefore, Vaccha, the Tathagata, with the destruction, the fading away, the cessation, the letting go, getting rid of all conceivings, all supposing, right? All imaginings, all thinking, all I-making, mind-making, and latent tendency of conceit, right? So here, in other words, views and ideas of craving and ideas of all kinds of thoughts about comparing ourselves with others, of measuring, all this, the Buddha say, he has let go of them. The Tathagata is freed through not clinging, I say. So in other words, the Buddha says, I have renounced all this. I'm free from all this kind of thinking and being caught in all this thinking, all these negative emotions. So they don't trouble me. Now, Vacchagotta goes on to ask the state that the Buddha refers to. So this is what's interesting about Vacchagotta. That's why you have a sutta about him, because he asks the right questions in a very interesting way, useful ways, so that we can learn. So his next question, 16, in that case, Master Gautama, where does a monk with a freed mind arise after death? So he's very curious. So he insists on finding out about the four statements. Is not, both is and is not, neither is nor is not. So now he says maybe the Buddha might talk about something that's applicable to it. So now he says, okay, let me apply this idea to what the Buddha has just mentioned. A monk who is awakened, who is freed, who has normal views and so on. In that case, Master Gautama, where does a monk with a freed mind arise after death? What does the Buddha say? Arises, Vaccha, does not apply. Okay, now it is amazing, beautiful reply. Does not apply. It cannot be used here. It's just a wrong word. I will give you another example later. Let me just explain this. Then Master Gautama, says Vaccha, he does not arise. Okay, the Vaccha says, okay, if you say arise doesn't apply, what about does not arise? Does not arise, Vaccha, does not apply. It doesn't make sense here. You can't use it here. Then Master Gautama, he both arises and does not arise. Again, Buddha says both arises and does not arise. Vaccha does not apply. Then Master Gautama, he neither arises nor does not arise. Again, the Buddha says this phrase does not apply. In other words, you cannot say the Arahat, use simple one word, the Arahat, neither arise, nor does not arise, nor both, nor neither. You can't define it in any way. You can say Nirvana, you can talk of in any way. You don't apply any of this to describe Nirvana. To go a little deep, be a bit technical, we can say you cannot predicate Nirvana, you cannot predicate the Arahat, right? So of course, many of you, just like Vaccha at that time, he's confused. He's wondering, what is the Buddha saying here? 17. How is it, Master Gautama, that when Master Gautama is asked, and where, Master Gautama, does a monk with such a freed mind arise? He replies, arises, does not apply, does not arise, also does not apply, both also does not apply, neither also does not apply. All right? So now he says he's confused. Okay, let's go down and look at how he says it further down. Okay, here you are. 17.2. Master Gautama, I have fallen into not knowing here. All right, is a very typical way of Indian way of talking. I have fallen into not knowing here. I'm confused here. And even that measure of satisfaction and confidence I had from our previous conversation, that too is lost to me. Of course, if we simplify it, we just say, I'm completely lost now. So this is what Vaccha says. All right, so what does the Buddha say? Let's look at the Buddha's reply, 17.3 further down. 18. Okay, so now the Buddha comes up with this parable of the fire, okay, from which we get the sutta title. The Buddha was not trying to be nice to him in this case. The Buddha says, you should be not knowing Vaccha. You ought to be confused. Deep indeed, Vaccha is this Dharma. Hard to see, hard to understand. Peaceful, sublime, not won by mere reasoning, subtle, to be experienced by the wise. Then the Buddha hints to Vaccha why he cannot understand. It is hard for you to know, being one, holding a different view, keeping different priorities, having different likes, following a different practice, following a different teaching. As such, Vaccha, I will question you in return about this. Answer as you please. Okay, here we go. You have something new here. The Buddha counter questions. This now I'll ask you a question. So this is his method. He knows Vaccha is ready. So he takes this new step to help Vaccha see things more clearly. He uses a parable, a metaphor of the fire. This metaphor answers the question. If someone asks you, where is Nirvana? Can you tell me what is Nirvana? Okay, so this is the answer, the parable of the fire. 19. Now, what do you think, Vaccha? Suppose there were a fire burning before you. Would you know it? Notice how direct, very simple. The Buddha makes sure that they are on the same page, as we say. If there's a fire burning, would you know it? Of course, if Vaccha says no, then of course you say, okay, we better agree on this, all right, that there is a fire. So here it's good that Vaccha is quite intelligent, is quite a normal guy. He says, yeah, of course I would know. Master Gautama, if there were a fire burning before me, I would know it. Suppose, Vaccha, someone were to ask you, this fire that is burning before you, depending on what does it burn? What, Vaccha, would be your answer? Master Gautama, on being asked thus, I would answer, this fire burning before me burns depending on grass and wood. But there probably is a real fire there, and the fire is burning on grass and wood, right? So here, the idea is that fire burns on fuel. You need fuel to keep the fire burning. And what is our fuel? Our fuel, of course, karma. Karma keeps us going, keeps us suffering. 19.2. Suppose, Vaccha, this fire before you were to go out. Would you know it? All right, so here is another important question. And Vaccha replies, Master Gautama, if this fire before me were to go out, I would know it. Now, suppose, Vaccha, you were asked, when that fire before you went out, in which direction has it gone? Right? So here the Buddha is trying to put the 10 questions another way. Right? So imagine if you ask that kind of question, where has this fire gone? To the east, to the west, to the north, to the south? Notice when the ancient Indians speak of the 4 directions, they begin with the east because they do not have a compass like the Chinese. So they look to the east in the morning to see the sunrise, right? So from the east, they know what's the west, and from there, they know the north and the south. So the Buddha says, how would you answer if the fire is, how would you reply? Where has the fire gone? Now, Vacchagotta uses the Buddha's own words. It does not apply, Master Gautama. See, now this is the turning point, if you like. You find Vacchagotta got it. All right? He now understands. He's on the same page as the Buddha. It does not apply, Master Gautama. The fire had burned depending on grass and wood. When that fuel is used up and it does not receive any more fuel, being without fuel, it will surely be reckoned as quenched. Quench. Okay? So here, meaning attain nirvana, quench, put out. Okay. So there you are. You find Vacchagotta understanding what the Buddha is saying, but he's not attain any levels yet. In a sense, most of us are on this level. We understand the Dhamma very well, and then we set up our own website. We call ourselves teachers, and so on and so forth. Okay, but we're still not even on the path yet. Okay, so the Buddha then adds one more parable, the great ocean. In the same way, Vaccha, the Tathagata, the freed saint, has abandoned the form by which one describing him would use. It is cut off at the root, made like a palm tree stump, done away with, so that it is not subject to further growth. So no more re-arising, no more rebirth. Right? Other religions talk about rebirth, being born again, and so on, but the Buddha say, no more rebirth, no more suffering. True form for the Tathagata, for the Buddha, for the Arhat. The Tathagata Vaccha is freed from reckoning in terms of form. You can no more define the Buddha in terms of form, just as we define other beings. Form, but not the Buddha. You can't define it that way anymore. He is profound, immeasurable, unfathomable. Now, these 3 words mean the same thing, very deep. as the great ocean. Just like the great ocean, very deep. You can't really understand this by looking at the outside. Further down, so that he arises does not apply. Notice the word is na upeti, does not apply. Okay, he does not arise, does not apply. He both arises and does not arise, does not apply. He neither arises nor not arises, does not apply. None of the four states apply. Nothing to talk about because it's already awakened. And then you have this whole thing, this whole chunk of this paragraph is a format. Okay, so you just change this highlighted word. Instead of form, you put feeling, right? So you can't describe the Buddha in terms of feeling because it's all gone now, right? Cut off at the root. No more, in other words, the karma feeding it is no more there. Greed, hatred, delusion are gone. Cut down like a palm tree stump. So you can't speak of this feeling in any of these four ways. They do not apply. Same thing with perception, right? You can't talk of perception in the Buddha or the Arhat. It's all gone, right? So apply, arises, does not arise, both, neither, do not apply in the case of the Buddha, the Arhat. Further down, formations also does not apply. Formation means creating karma, thinking, intending, and further down, consciousness also does not apply. Notice this part is important. You can't talk about consciousness of the Buddha anymore, right? So there are some who try to somehow squeeze in some eternalist idea that, there must be some idea the Buddha gave us about the self, the soul, consciousness. But here, this paragraph is very clear. You can't even talk of the Buddha, the Arhat, in terms of consciousness. Okay, so it's all gone. There's no way of talking about it. It does not apply anymore. Now we come nearer to the end of the sutta. Next page, further down. Now one last parable, the great sal tree parable. Probably is a sal tree nearby. 21. When this was said, the wanderer Vacchagotta said this. Now you find this is Vacchagotta's kind of, we call it lightning roar, if you like. We don't call it a lion roar because it's not yet in our heart. So it's kind of, he makes this great response. Master Gautama, suppose there were a great sal tree not far from a village or town, whose branches and leaves were dissolved by impermanence, which would then dissolve the bark and loose crust, then dissolve the sapwood, so that in due course it was bereft of branches and leaves, bereft of bark and loose outer crust, bereft of sapwood, and would be clear of them, standing only as the pith. The pith means the solid, hard wood that remains, that is useful to carpenters and that turn into furniture and other useful parts of the house, for example. So he's saying, wow, what the Buddha has taught is like this. He has removed all the extra parts of a tree, and this tree is left just with the core that is useful to carpenters for making things. Even so, joins up the parable. Even so, this discourse of the Master Gautama is bereft of branches and leaves, bereft of bark and loose crust, bereft of sapwood, standing only as the pith. So here is really his kind of declaring his joy in the Buddha's teachings. Says, wow, you have really taught me the essence of things, the pith of it, right? So here, this parable is quite common. It's used in a number of places. Starting from the center of the tree, you have the pith, and then the sapwood, the wet part of the hardwood, and then the bark and the outer loose crust, and then the branches and the leaves. So this to show you different parts of the leaf, and the most useful part is right inside the hard pith. And he's very happy. Now he takes refuge. Yes, let's go down now to reach the bottom of the sutta. Okay. Excellent Master Gautama. Excellent Master Gautama. Venerable Sir, notice now he calls Venerable Sir. Now he's really, his heart is with the Buddha. Venerable Sir, just as one were to place upright what had been overturned, or were to reveal what was hidden, or were to show the way to one who was lost, or were to hold up a lamp in the dark so that those with eyes could see forms. In the same way, the Blessed One has in numerous ways made the Dhamma clear. I go to the Buddha for refuge, to the Dhamma, and to the community of monks. May the Blessed One remember me as a layman who has gone forth from this day, who has gone from this day forth for life. So, yes, taken refuge in the Buddha. And in due course, it comes some more time, he becomes a monk, and he goes to meditate. And then he becomes an arhat. So here you have this beautiful story of this inquirer, this very intellectual person, philosopher, if you like, who has been very patient, very insistent, very patient with the Buddha, and the Buddha also accommodates him. And in the end, he frees himself from suffering, he reaches the path, and becomes an arhat. What a wonderful story. So that is Vacchagotta. Sadhu. Okay, question time.
Thank you, Piya, for your Sutta teaching. Now we have our Q&A session. Sister Isin, please.
Thank you, Sister Rahman. Sadhu, Brother Piya, for the Sutta teaching. Brothers and sisters, kindly type your questions in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself to ask your question verbally. Brother Piya, at the moment, there is no question.
Okay. Meantime, right now, you can take a family photo.
Brother Piya, the question from
Okay, yes.
Brother Tom is, the parable of the sound tree is like one of the Upanishads, but I do not remember the title of the Upanishad. Break a seed in it. What do you find? ETD.
You find that the Buddha often uses metaphors and words that the people are already familiar with. And as you know, Vacchagotta was himself a Brahmin. So the Buddha will use something, the vocabulary of Vacchagotta. And well, I don't know whether these parables are found elsewhere or not, but once the Buddha uses it in connection with his teaching, you find the impact is very powerful there. So this is where you find Vacchagotta was impressed because of that. He was not impressed with the way it was used in the Upanishads or in the Brahminical teachings, but when the Buddha used it, that familiar voice, but this time it is like a tune sung beautifully with the right accompaniment and music, and so he's really impressed with it. So there's a big difference there. Who uses the parable, who is talking, and what meaning does it give to the listener? So you find Vacchagotta finds this new situation very awakening, very enlightening, if you like. Okay. Okay. All right. Any other next question? You have about 8 minutes.
Thank you, Brother Piya. There's no question in the chat box at the moment.
It's okay. Any words you don't understand, any section you're not clear about, you can still ask. Well, as usual, the first time when I look at it before teaching, I told myself, wow, this is a difficult sutta. But after studying it, looking at it, you can see it's a very interesting one. There's so much we can learn from it. So you find that the suttas always have a way of helping us relate to the Buddha, how we ourselves are curious and and you find Vacchagotta is like us, representing us, connecting with the Buddha. Any other questions? Well, now our proofreaders are reaching over more than halfway through the volume 60.1e on the idea of delusion and so on. And this volume is really interesting. I'm quite amazed at how all these ideas come together. And I'm very fortunate to have a professional copywriter helping to proofread. He's an Englishman, and he's also interested in the Dhamma. So we have this really beautiful friendship looking at the suttas to help present all these ideas more clearly. So even when you proofread volume 60, you'll find there's so much you can learn. Meantime, I've begun writing on the last of the series, the 6th volume, that is volume 60.1f, Psychopathology of Mindfulness. And here we have some very interesting views also. I began talking about the nature of cults and so on. And Tommy is very helpful with this book also. And we have other aspects talking about the difficulties in meditation and so on. So this is what this last 6th volume will deal with: difficulties in meditation and how we detect them, how we can overcome them. And it is 6 huge volumes. Each volume is like the one normal SD volume, about 200 over pages. And what volume E, 60E, is I think reaching 300 pages this time. Anyway, that's just to inform you, and also encourage the proofreaders to finish their proofreading so that I can update. And I think we can start producing volume E soon, within a month, I think. But the thing is, the editing goes on. So even after the book is published, after we have the ISBN, we still update it, because as new ideas come in, we revise them. All the authors do that; they revise their books so that you can read a better edition the next time. Okay, we have about 4 minutes more. Any more questions?
Teacher Piya,
Yes.
may I ask, how should one's mind be when dying or when about to leave this world?
Yes, it's
Thank
one
you.
of those questions a lot of people ask. I remember it was often asked to me when I was a monk. The point is, we do not know when death will come. So the advice is, live this moment as if it is your last. We can never know. We go to sleep, we might not wake up again. We might not even know it. So basically, learn to be happy. The simple answers: learn to be happy. When we live this world happily, then the mind is bright and happy. And your rebirth also will be a happy one. That is the popular standard answer. And after 50 years of studying Buddhism, I've learned that the traditional answers are not always accurate. We are told by traditional teachers, the last thought is very important, right? This is not found in the suttas, right? Imagine it's someone who has been doing bad things and they just have a last good thought and is going to have a good rebirth. I mean, that doesn't make sense, right? And then a good person who has been doing good all his life and then he dies with a bad thought and is born in a suffering state. It also doesn't make sense. The point is, we do not really know when that very last moment is. Very difficult to know. But one thing you can rest assured is that if you have been habitually doing good deeds, habitually, right, then this good karma will be there with you right to the end. That is why the Buddha says in the Anicca Chakku Sutta, S25.1, the Buddha says that if you constantly reflect on impermanence, make it your practice, you will attain the path, stream winning, in this life itself. If not, definitely at the moment of passing away. Now, that's amazing. That statement is amazing. The Buddha guarantees you will attain that state of the path in this life itself. But you must regularly practice impermanence, reflecting mindfully the nature of impermanence, not afraid of it, being happy with it, and then you apply it in various ways in your life. You don't just reflect on everything is impermanent. You reflect it. So if something is impermanent, even you see little creatures, they value their life because to them it is impermanent. And so you show that loving kindness to them, and you feel happy that way. And you see people struggling, trying to work hard because they know nothing lasts forever. So you see them with compassion why they're suffering, and you find you're happy because you're more calm. You're not caught up with all that. So this idea of impermanence gives you this broad, happy view of life. And if you have that kind of mind, you will die without thinking of wanting this or wanting that or hating this or getting angry about that or being confused. You just let go peacefully. And because you know this body cannot last forever, and you have to find a new home, so to speak, right? Sometimes the word used is home, oka, meaning home. The mind finds a new home. So we have to be kind to each other, our spouses, our family, our friends. We have been friends before, and here you are, we meet again. And in the future, we will meet again in the similar happy circumstances, right? So, simple answer, live happily, reflect on impermanence, show your loving kindness to others. When the moment comes, we just turn the page. All right? Okay, so with that, it's just nice.
Sadhu. Thank you.
Sadhu, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's end this session. Okay, let us close with a short reflection. Well, I'm happy today, even though there's not as many of us before. We have really wonderful friends who are gathered here to hear the Dhamma, practice the Dhamma. I enjoy reminding you every time you join this session is like a practice in renunciation. You learn to let go of the world, your family, the things that you usually do, just let go for a while, for about 2 hours. And here you are, you keep the precepts, the 3 refuges, you do some meditation, you listen to the Dhamma. These are all wonderful good acts. But above all this wonderful good karma, may you be well, may you be happy. Send your loving kindness to your loved ones that you care for, and also to yourself. And finally, we show our gratitude to the 3 jewels, because of whom we are here, that we continue to grow in wisdom. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.